Hey, Newbie Dan here, trying not to lose my voice. I want to join these two pieces of wood using screws and countersunk holes. It's always a bother trying to get the two pieces aligned just right and keep them at 90 degrees while drilling the holes. That's why I built this corner clamp. Put the pieces in, align the edges, and clamp them down. Then just drill the holes and drive in the screws. Piece of cake. And if you want to use it for glue-ups, it has a cutout to help keep the glue squeeze-out off the clamp. I'm going to show you how to build this corner clamp and how you can get the plans. If that sounds interesting to you, stick around. I'm offering plans for this clamp on my website for a nominal fee. The plans include measurements in both inches and millimeters, and they're chock full of detailed instructions and tips. They also include plans for a smaller version of the clamp, which I'll talk about at the end of this video. So if you want to help support my channel, buying these plans is one good way to do it. If you don't want to spend any money, I've got a free SketchUp model on 3D Warehouse. If you don't know how to view SketchUp models, see my video on the subject. Everything's made from 3/4 inch plywood, except for the clamp supports, which I'm making from 3/4 inch hard maple. Go ahead and cut out all the pieces according to the plans or the SketchUp model. For the pieces that'll be laminated, I recommend cutting them oversized and trim them to their final size after the glue dries. This way, if they move while the glue is drying, it's no big deal. Of course, when I cut the 4 pieces for the clamp supports, I forgot to cut them oversized. I'll have to be extra careful when I glue them up. Fortunately, there's some wiggle room if these aren't the exact right dimensions. Let's glue up the 2 clamp supports. I'm trying to find the grains that match best. Obviously, I'm just being picky since this is only a shop jig. Add the glue and clamp them. I'm trying to get them to not move too much since I forgot to cut them oversized. For the brace glue up, I'm using clamps that aren't really designed for this, but glue ups mean every clamp in the shop has to man up at some point. Assuming you cut the panels oversized, you don't need to align them precisely. By the way, you really only need clamping pressure on the outside because everything else will get cut away. We'll set them aside to dry for a couple of hours. We're going to build this portion next, which I'm going to call the plunger. I'm sure there's a better name, but I'm sticking with plunger. To make a plunger, we drill a counterbore in the clamp face. Then we put the head of the carriage bolt in the hole and hold it in place with a mending plate. So let's start by cutting the center hole in the mending plates. I'm using some tap magic to help drill the hole in the steel plates. Tap magic is liquid gold as far as I'm concerned. Since I'm using 1/4 inch carriage bolts, I'm cutting a 5/16 inch hole. I end up with some sharp edges on the back, but I smoothed them out on my belt sander. The next step is to drill counterbores in the clamp faces for the carriage bolt heads. The hole needs to be large enough for the bolt head and deep enough so when you cover it up with the mending plate, it has enough room to wiggle around some. I'm using a 5/8 inch Forstner bit for this. The hole's just a little too shallow, so I increased my drill press's depth stop, and that's perfect. And of course, we do 2 of these. The mending plate is held on by a couple of wood screws. No need to drill pilot holes for these. I think it's easiest to get 1 screw in without the carriage bolt first. Then back out the screw, add the carriage bolt, and finish up. As I've said before, make sure it can wiggle around some. And of course, we do 2 of these. When the glue's had at least a couple of hours to dry, you can remove the clamps. Assuming you cut the pieces oversized, go ahead and trim them down to their final dimensions now. Since I didn't cut my clamp supports oversized, I trimmed them just enough to clean up the glue squeeze out and to square them up. Everything on this side of the clamp is mostly irrelevant. You can do whatever you want with it. My plans call for cutting out a portion of the brace here, mostly because I designed my clamp based somewhat on this one from Rockler. I almost forgot to cut the end off here. It prevents glue squeeze out from getting on the brace. We cut off a section of the base here so we have plenty of room for a drill, and also to prevent glue squeeze out from getting on the base. I'm leaving this portion of the base intact, even though the rocker clamp doesn't have anything here, because I'm not sure how stable the clamp will be without it. Take the two clamp supports you laminated earlier and drill a hole in the middle of each one for the threaded insert. I'm using these 1/4-inch threaded inserts, which require a 3/8-inch hole. Then install the inserts. This particular insert uses a 6mm hex key. I've already marked where all the countersunk pilot holes will go in the bottom of the base, according to the plans. Position the brace on the top of the base and clamp it in place. Try to get it as close to 90 degrees as possible. Then clamp it down to your workbench. I had to remove one of the original clamps, but I made sure not to move the brace. Then drill and countersink the holes. I did the last 2 holes after removing the clamps. Believe it or not, we're almost done. Before attaching a clamp support to the base, find the side with the threaded insert and screw the support onto a plunger. I've made 2 marks on the edge of the base to help me align the support. Turn the base over and stick the other clamp support under the far side of the base. Then line up the support with the plunger facing inside and get it square to the edge. It doesn't have to be spot on perfect, that's why the clamp faces need to wiggle. But get it as close as you can and clamp it down. My clamp's a little too wide to fit in between the pilot holes, so I had to drill and countersink one side, then move the clamp and do the other side. You can add the knob now or later. For knobs, you can buy them or make them. See my video on the subject for more information on making knobs. Add a nut, then the knob. Then tighten the nut and the knob so the knob won't come off. Don't glue it because you may want to take the knob off sometime. Then repeat the process for the other clamp support. We're done. Let's say you wanted to join these 2 pieces of plywood. Get your clamp and put 1 piece in. This one is long, so I need a piece of scrap wood to prop up the end. Turn the knob until the piece of wood doesn't wiggle around. Not so tight it can't move, just no wobbling. Then do the same with the other piece. By the way, you can join pieces much taller than these, but this is just a demo. Adjust the pieces until the corner is flush and tighten down the clamps. Make sure both pieces stay level as you tighten the clamps. You don't have to tighten the clamps as much as you might think. No reason to get carried away. Now just drill the pilot holes and drive the screws. Simple as that. Usually, if you're joining ends like this, you're probably going to join the other end also. But what if your pieces are too short to work in this clamp? Well, if you buy my plans, they include plans for this smaller clamp also. It works the same as the standard clamp. It's just smaller, so it can work with pieces like these. By the way, you can make an entire rectangle with either of these clamps. Huh, looks like I used the wrong piece. Good thing this is just a demo. Well, that's it. As I mentioned at the start, the plans are available at the newbiewoodworker.com/plans, and you can find links to the SketchUp model and the SketchUp video tutorial at the newbiewoodworker.com/SketchUp. Links are also in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider leaving a comment. Check out the description for links to products seen in this video. Just scroll down, click Show More, and scroll down until you see the links. And if you like what I do here, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring that bell to get notified about new videos. Thanks!